Do you think DC's multiverse stops at 6D? Think again. It's far worse than you can imagine. So get ready with some popcorn, because I'm going to show you a picture you never would forget. Welcome to the true scale of DC Comics cosmology. Let's not waste any time further and begin our video. Okay, let's start it with some debunk. Some people think DC is only 6D. Firstly, DC doesn't have only 6 dimensions. Even as far back as the 90s, the 5th dimension has been described as transgeometric, or literally beyond geometric dimensions, meaning that it is necessarily not just 5D. As per Scott Cinder's words, it's separate from the actual physical spatial dimensions and are more akin to spiritual or metaphysical layers of reality. He repeats the same detail on Twitter. This is again hammered in his interview with the Imaginary Axis, where he clarifies that the dimensions like the 5th or 6th are spatial in nature. The 6th dimension is also referred to as the 6th and highest plane of existence, which directly implies the 5 lower dimensions are also planes of existence. In fact, the 3rd dimension is also stated to be plane of existence. Even the so-called 4th dimension or time is stated multiple times to be beyond space and time and even beyond the confines of dimensions. Also, there are many statements for DC having more than 5 dimensions, like the universe having 11 spatial dimensions and another 12th and 3rd dimension beyond these 11 dimensions. There is also a statement for 14 dimensions, and yes, again, these are referring to spatial dimensions, since he says you have picture yourself in the larger 14 dimensions and not limit to only 3 dimensions. Also, Metron states that there are 28 dimensions, and before people say these refer to parallel universes, you have clearly not read the comic, since in this context, Metron takes a human through 6-dimensional space to the source wall. Metron then references the 28 known dimensions to the same human, consoling him due to his trauma from journey through 6 of those dimensions, saying his 3-dimensional mind can't handle much. Even Ramakrishna states that there are innumerable dimensions, and before you say they are parallel universes, Ramakrishna says there is a dimension just 2 steps removed from Deadman's dimension. This means those innumerable dimensions are in a hierarchy which would make them spatial. Want more proof? Just a few pages earlier, they were talking about how Deadman is only 3-dimensional being. So we can conclude in the context of this comic, they are indeed talking about spatial dimensions. Now some might say innumerable is not equal to infinite. I know that, but it sure is higher than 6 dimensions. And also in the latest Flashpoint comic we have been introduced to n-dimensional structures and extra-dimensional creature, which can infinitely regress. We also saw Mr. Terrific talk about Euclidean spaces, where he says there are at least 10, 11 or 26 dimensions because of string theory. So we can safely say DC is not 6D. As said in the Swamp Thing comic, there are more than 3 dimensions. There are an infinite planes. Now since DC is not 6D, then what is its actual tier? Let's know. Since it was stated all DC stories are canon, every character that ever existed in any continuity in canon is now accessible. Basically, one overarching continuity of DC Comics, basically just Morrison's Hypertime idea. Every Crisis era and Elseworld was made available for convergence. So yeah, this is going to be a composite scale. Let's start with the creation story. In the beginning there was nothing but only darkness. In this darkness a light was born, and their conflict birthed the flaw. The darkness is great darkness, and the light is the Overvoid, or source. From the source there was 2 forms of energies, which was anti-crisis energy and crisis energy, and sent a group of super celestials called the Hands to use these energies to start new omniverses in the Greater Omniverse. The Overvoid found inside itself a microbial and infinitesimal flaw created by one of the Hands, Perpetua. This flaw represents creation. Compared to Monitor Mind, the flaw contains complexities and contradictions, and Monitor Mind makes a concept, known as the Orrery of Worlds, to contain it and protect itself from the contradictions within it. So what is the Orrery of Worlds? The Orrery of Worlds, the 52nd universes of DC. The famous number of 52 universes mainly refer to known and discovered universes inside the local multiverse. These 52 have the exact same complexity of an infinite multiverse, as that the 52 are stated to the pre-crisis multiverse condensed. However, even these 52 universe aren't even the end of the multiverse, they are only the local multiverse, and there exists even a 53rd. These universes are infinite, with infinite possibilities birthing infinite parallel worlds and infinite timelines. The thing about universes you should know: the universe has a conceptual structure. Even the entire multiverse is conceptual. This conceptual structure of the universe has several layers to it. The first layer is the physical plane, or mortal plane, where all physicality exists. This is the part of universe which is bounded by dimensionality, spatiality, or temporality. The material world has multiple statements of having multiple infinities and infinite narratives, and not only in an abstract sense, the geometry of the universe contains infinities. This layer has nth dimensional structures and places that can contain any number of spatial dimensions. There is an infinite recursive artistic painting in the material plane containing at each of the infinite levels the same painting, which continues the recursion to infinity. Each level of the recursive painting has its own space and time. Each higher level views the lower one as an ordinary picture, and relative to the higher level, you become flat and unreal, proving an infinite hierarchy of dimensions, making the material plane high hyperversal. Also, the omnijective aspect of a reality is theorized to able to be bent in infinite directions, aka infinite dimensions. The next layer is the spiritual or metaphysical layer, which is beyond the material world. Also called as astral plane. The astral plane is a realm that is beyond space and time. It's a non-space and non-time, beyond the realms of space and time. This is where all of humanity's collective unconsciousness exists, and this shapes the physical layer, whatever the mortals believe it, comes to reality, and their beliefs shape the material universe. And before someone says that DC universes are subjective, well, no. The universe is both subjective and objective, as that it is omnijective. In DC, every theory any mortal has imagined exists. Humans' collective unconsciousness contains all possible worlds that you can imagine. Not only that, but it also has all impossibilities and contradictions. Stars are the gateway to these spiritual worlds, and even these stars have outer statements like existing in time and space beyond space. There is also the shining tower, at the center of existence, the pillar of creation, on the backstage of the universe, or as they call it, high space. The tower contains any concept, even the foundation of a concept of concept, the metaphysical wellspring of creation, thus making a single universe outer to even high outer. Now, as I said, there are more than 52 universes. There are infinite universes. These universes form the multiverse, which is stated to have infinite levels to it, suggesting there exists some kind of hierarchy between the universes. It is a hierarchy called the interconnected universe. While in the implicate order, it is stated David Bohm's implicate order theory as an interconnected universe with every part containing the whole. The universe is a system of wholes consisting of smaller and smaller wholes, spiraling down infinitely until the world is but a single cell in the body of God. Existence's interconnection makes it impossible to actually find out who is dreaming the other. After having a conversation with Buddy about the implicate order, reality, and God, James Highwater would claim all that exists is but a dream within a dream. This is supported by the entire creation being God's dream, making the hierarchy of universe Outerversal plus. Next, we have time stream, which is the fourth dimension, but it is beyond all space and time and beyond the confines of dimensions. It contains all the universes. This is Outerversal plus. Next, we have the bleed, or as it's often called, bleed space and hyperspace, is a dimension that can only be accessed conventionally by moving out of conventional space-time itself. The bleed is beyond time stream, as while the monitors were inside of the time stream, they could not see or control the bleed. The bleed seems to see the multiverse as comic panels. It is also an area of dimensional space that lies between and contains all the infinite universes and layers of reality, serving as the membrane keeping them apart and the bulk encompassing them. The bleed is a metaphysical and cosmic conceptual realm beyond all space and time that contains all the universes and dimensions, making the bleed space high outerversal. Next, we have speed force, which is the dimension beyond bleed. The speed force exists in every era, universe, and dimension, and exists as an infinite energy. Speed Force is also a higher dimension compared to everything below, making it high outerversal as well. Next, we have the elemental realms like the green, the red, the grey, the rot, the clear, the melt, the white, etc. The red contains Platonic archetypes. It is a mesh of Platonic concepts. The red is a timeless, placeless place. The red is not of space or time. The green is timeless. Green touches all realms and spaces. The green has no here or there. The green is trans-dimensional. It allows you to travel to heaven and hell and other Godsphere realms. The green is below the Godsphere. The green lies between reality and ideas. In the green, the space folds into a shape beyond mathematics. This makes the elemental realms high outerversal as well. Next, we have Yggdrasil. If creation were a lens, Yggdrasil would be its focal point. Yggdrasil is one of the foundations of creation, the covenant between God and man. It represents the greatest source of power the world has ever known. It's the queen of the parliament, thus making it high outer as well. Beyond the kingdoms, we have the lords of order and chaos. They live in a non-place that transcends the constraints of logic and is nowhere. Chaos and order are duality and non-duality. Chaos and order embody yin and yang, making them high outerversal as well. Next, we have Sphere of Gods, which is stated countless times to be beyond space and beyond time. It contains dimensionless, spaceless, and timeless realms. It also contains realms which have days, which are not days, but transcends days and place that isn't a place and transcends place, dimension without dimensions. Basically, transdual realms. Gods are Platonic archetypes. New gods are self-aware ideas that use concept weapons. The God Sphere is Plato's archetypal world. Cherubs are also Platonic, which exist in heaven. Fairy, a realm in Sphere of Gods, is timeless and non-solid as it's not a place. Beings in Fairy create their own time, so things like movement or anything to do with time, even progress can happen in the realm. This is not only for Fairy, but for every realm in the God Sphere again. It's explained how pre-creating the realms, they just used to be voids. Voids that take shape. Hell was called an unplace, for example. Now, there is an important hierarchy in God's sphere that you must know. There are an infinite heavens, infinite afterlives for each soul, which there are numerous. Now, these heavens are dreams. The entire creation is a dream, within deeper dream and deeper consciousness, going on endlessly without any end. Dreams are archetypal, meaning each dream is archetypal to the previous and conceptually above it. Each heaven is a formless existence compared to the last, formless and transcendent to the last dreams. When you cross each dream, you travel the distance from earth to heaven, which is basically outerversal transcendence. And when you go to next heaven, you have to repeat the same journey again. Basically, the outerversal transcendences are repeated on a higher scale infinite times, making this hierarchy extraversal in character stats and profiles. Now, opposite of heaven is hell, which is of the same size as heaven. Each soul also has its own hell, which is metaphysical. Now, there are infinite hells, with each hell being metaphysical to the other hell, and it also forming an extraversal structure. So the God sphere is extraversal. Next, we have collective unconsciousness, which is Hecate's domain and exists above the sphere of the gods. The green is part of the collective unconscious. If enough people believe in something, it becomes retroactively true. Gods are powered and fueled by belief. New Genesis exists because new gods and humans believe it does. It is a cosmic sea of symbols and archetypes, dreams and ideas made manifest. Gods only die because they believe they do. If there is belief that they live, they will continue to live. Mankind's beliefs is what creates all the hells and devils, making the collective unconsciousness also extraversal. Plus, all of the God sphere is governed by a form of time known as hypertime, which is described as being 3 temporal dimensions, essentially a time cube rather than a timeline, which is quite difficult to imagine. But it is beyond space and time. It's more of a meta sense. The concept of hypertime is a form of geometrical look on reality and fiction, with Morrison likely basing it on M-theory. The hypertime has planar time. It is composed of likely infinite line times referring to different continuities as well as different fictions entirely, all of which is spread infinitely over a board, which is called plane time. They all bring information, story, to Earth 33, the real world, which is where Cube Time comes in. Cube Time incorporates the real world and the comic universe, as well as every single story that has ever been told together. The Hypertime holds everything DC ever published, all realities, Elseworlds, Tangent, Pre-Crisis, imaginary stories, and more. Encompasses the Crisis on Infinite Earths, 0 Hour, Final Crisis, Blackest Night, Flashpoint, Convergence, and Metal. The Hypertime also has a physical manifestation known as the Brainfold interior, which is the space between spaces and time between times. This Hypertime contains the new gods and the God Sphere, making it extraversal as well. Before people say, how can God Sphere be beyond time, yet be governed by time? Well, you have to understand the faux Hypertime is a form of time. It at its core is emotion, just like how Omniverse is space, but at its core is conceptual. Next we have the Limbo, which should be a higher transcendence, a higher dream of God. Thus it's more archetypal compared to everything below it, making it one layer into extraversal. Next we have Monitor Sphere, which is also more archetypal to everything below it, a place where space, time is more profound than everything below. The realm of primal forms, making it 2 layers into extraversal. We also have the 5th dimension. The 5th dimension is imagination itself. The 5th dimension and its inhabitants existed outside the multiverse, and it represented imagination, the blood of the multiverse and the energy that flowed between the dimensions beneath it. Imps are imaginary thought constructs. The concept of death doesn't exist in the 5th dimension. Imps can freely move through the time stream and hypertime. You can access limbo through the 5th dimension. They view everything below as fiction. 5th dimension transcends Alman to the same degree Alman transcends Shazam, making it 3 layers into extraversal. Next, we have the Source Wall. Source Wall exists in every plane of existence in the multiverse. The Source Wall is the very limit of the multiverse, where everything ends. It simultaneously exists at the edge of every universe, the ultimate barrier that stretches beyond infinity. The limit to even thought. There's only one Source Wall, despite what mortal senses can tell. The Source Wall's destruction caused the 5th dimension and imps to start dying, proving it's beyond 5th dimension. No mortal imagination can fully encompass the Source Wall. Beyond any known measure of time and space lies the Source Wall. Spanning all dimensions, it spreads an infinite barrier protecting the cosmos from the source. Metron states that he cannot go beyond Source Wall, despite with Boomtube, he can travel to higher realms, and even mortals can travel extraversal distances and reach God Sphere, showing it's a higher infinity compared to everything below, making it infinite layers into baseline extraversal. Beyond the Source Wall, we have the 6th dimension, the highest plane of existence. The final realm beyond all realms, the realm beyond imagination, where the unimaginable happens. The Source Wall's destruction allowed MXY to open a portal to the 6th dimension, meaning it is beyond Source Wall, making the 6th dimension 1 layer into infinite layers into extraversal. Next, we have the Dark Multiverse. It is an oceanic subconscious realm that the multiverse seems tiny to and floats on. The multiverse is like a fishbowl being dumped into an ocean, with that ocean being the Dark Multiverse. It is massively larger than all of creation, 6th dimension and below. The worlds of the Dark Multiverse are twisted echoes of the light realities in the multiverse above. Everything in the Dark Worlds is the exact same as the main multiverse until a change point. Just one of the worlds in Dark Multiverse contains its own Necron, Darkseid, and Source. It also has its own Speed Force. The other place is the Sphere of the Gods in the Dark Multiverse. The Source Wall exists in the Dark Multiverse. In interview with Imaginary Axis, Scott Snyder said that multiverse like a dot and Dark Multiverse expands in every direction infinitely, thus infinite in size. It used to contain 3 crisis worlds, multiverses, with their own version of each crisis, meaning everything that exists in Light Multiverse exists in Dark Multiverse, but on an infinite higher scale since it's infinitely larger than all of Light Multiverse, making the Dark Multiverse transfinite into extraversal. Next up, we have the Greater Omniverse, which contains infinite multiverses, like the one created by Perpetua, This omniverse was created by hands who used the power of Source to create this. This should also be transferred into Extraversal. Next we have the Source or Overvoid. They are the same being essentially, with Overvoid being the unconscious state and Source being the conscious state. First let's talk about the Source. The Source is the culmination and origin of all that is and all that will be. It is the souls of all planes of existence and fuels life throughout infinity. A limitless energy that generates and nurtures all life in the multiverse. The Source is the ultimate ground of being, beyond gods, beyond all divisions and definitions. The Source is quite literally the source of reality, the one constant in a universe of change. It is serene, omnipotent, all-wise, the ultimate mystery, a non-dual omni-awareness, contains within it life and anti-life, good and evil, up and down, in and out, black and white, and must be regarded as the ultimate concept that cannot be halved or divided or contained. According to Grant Morrison, the Source is the highest plane and is like the Ein Sof Or of Kabbalism. Before everything, before life and death and matter, out of the dark came the Source. The Source is the source of creativity and creation that fuels all things in existence and exists above the chronicler on the cosmic ladder, resides at the center of the Greater Omniverse. Next, we have the Overvoid. The Overvoid is the void that underlies all of the dreams. In the beginning, the Overvoid was completely pure and beyond all description. The monitor mind was originally a perfect space before a flaw appeared. To keep this flaw from spreading, the Overvoid contained this flaw. The Overvoid is consistently represented as the white page of the DC cosmos, also being compared to the Source. In an early diagram of the Multiverse map, we can see the Source being labeled as the white page. Grant Morrison said it was a timeless place that resolves all contradictions or flaws, a being so great that it is a being of pure thought and consciousness, containing everything just like the page of the comic. It was furthermore described as a being of non-duality, aka a non-dual awareness. It is beyond all of creation. All things are layered on themselves endlessly in the Overvoid. Everything is trapped within the endless plays of ink and page. And Overvoid is beyond it to the point all of this is essentially zero to it, making the Overvoid and Source even higher into Extraversal, basically two uncountable layers into Extraversal. Beyond the Overvoid we have Final Heaven. Some might say it's not beyond the Overvoid, but it actually is. Final Heaven is the coffee stain on top of the map, which was spilled by Anonymous, about who we will talk later. Final Heaven was the coffee stain on the map, according to author Steve Orlando. When everything was going blank page after the reality wipe, they say it's just Final Heaven out there, which means Final Heaven wasn't being wiped. The strangers spilling the coffee is referenced again here as a real and legitimate event. Final Heaven is in the outer ring of existence because it's the coffee stain. Final Heaven is nearly outside of all things save one, which probably refers to the realm of the Eonymous. Steve Orlando Twitter answers go further to confirm that Final Heaven is the coffee stain on the map. Some say no, it proves it exists in page or Overvoid. Well, no, he clearly says they exist on the map. There is a clear distinction between on and in. So yeah, Final Heaven is beyond Overvoid and hence is higher into Extraversal. Beyond the Final Heaven we have the realm of Anonymous. These beings are addicted to entertainment. If they don't get entertained, they will destroy all of creation. And so Retconn Corps try their best to keep the DC stories entertaining. From here, the Overvoid and its stories are mere pieces of paper. The whole DC map is a mere map and a piece of paper to them, making them higher into Extraversal. Then we have also the Kraken Oversphere. What is the Oversphere? Basically a realm that views the Overvoid as a piece of paper and that calls it the Paperverse. Oversphere is but only one plane within infinite planes of existence in the crack. All of this was made by Greg Freely, who created this on accident by falling after going too much on drugs. All of the crack is fiction, the Greg Freely, making the crack, Oversphere, and Greg Freely even higher into Extraversal. Next we have the unwritten cosmology. Before people claim that it is creator-owned story, in the DC book A Vast and Vibrant Multiverse it is simply explained. They treat creator-owned stuff as part of the continuity, So it being creator owner don't mean it ain't canon to DC. Fables is canon to Unwritten, since Tom Taylor actually went to the world of Fables, so it would also likely be a world in the hierarchy of worlds or stories. Batman appears in Batman vs. Bigby, a wolf in Gotham number, with Fables characters, and the official DC website says that those are the characters from Fables. The Houses of Mystery and Silence are shown in Unwritten, issue 36. The House of Mystery also exists in DC and appeared as recent as Dark Knight's Metal issue 2. The House of Secrets appears a lot in DC too. Story of Superman is also shown to exist as a part of the hierarchy of stories. So we can use Unwritten to upscale DC cosmology further. Basically, in Unwritten, the entire story revolves around stories or narratives. These stories are all endless spaces. Each story consists of a space and a narrative channel. The narrative channel is the words of the story, while the space is, well, the physical space, the words being purely conceptual, with the world ending when the words stop. Each story is written on a page, an unwritten page, a page that lacks any narrative and concepts, acts as the antithesis to all of existence, much like the Overvoid. Beyond the page is the negative space. It is the space that the truths that a story can't acknowledge resides. Every story resides in a hierarchy. This hierarchy is infinite and endless with no top or bottom. The stories are stacked upon one another like a cake and is further implied to be infinite. The hierarchy is nothing more than stories told by other stories. This idea of stacks is rather consistent as well, the lower stacks being fictional to ones above, being written. Now each story is like a shadows on a cave compared to higher stories, which are like Plato's theory of forms. Basically a outer transcendence to further support it. Dimensions are irrelevant to characters in the higher layered stories. This is because Wilson Taylor created the Tommy Taylor book series, where there are mages who could add entire dimensions to physical space, and they reside in hyperplanes. Now something that's interesting is that the hierarchy of stories is in itself a story. This is consistent with the stories within stories idea. This creates a theoretical transfinite recursion of hierarchy of stories, with the hierarchy of stories we know being a part of another one, ad infinitum. Basically, this would make DC overall immeasurable layers into extraversal. Now the Leviathan views this hierarchy as a dream and can easily destroy it. The Leviathan contains its entire species, as well as residing in an ocean, an infinite regression of whales all contained within the Leviathan that contains all. The ocean it exists in acts as an underlying reality greater than the stories, with everything also coming from this great sea. And with this I conclude, DC cosmology is immeasurable layers into extraversal. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and comment. My next video would be on Vertigo cosmology, since I feel like it couldn't get enough screen time. So be sure to subscribe to not miss the video.